Welcome once again to Help, I'm a Parent, Christian Parenting in the Real World. We're so happy that you have invited us to enter into your home, your church, or wherever you may be gathered today. Perhaps you're viewing this alone, or as a couple, or with a small group of friends, or maybe with a large church group. Or perhaps you're watching this online. Wherever you are today, we are delighted you've joined us on this program.
We are your hosts, Drs. Claudio and Pamela Consuegra, and together we serve as the Directors for Family Ministries for the North American Division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We believe that the most important role you will ever play is being a parent to your child. God has entrusted you with a treasure more precious than anything you will ever own. If you have more than one child, my guess is that you know all too well the challenges of sibling rivalry. Those family vacations that you wish would end because you've spent most of the time settling disputes among your children. Or what about the call from your child's teacher telling you that your toddler has been suspended from preschool because of hitting or biting a classmate? Yes, those relational skills, or the lack of, begin to reveal themselves very early in a child's life.
The first person close to their age that your little one will need to learn to live with is their brother or sister. Those skills will in turn be transferred to the relationships they have with their peers. There is nothing that can destroy the peace and tranquility in a home more than siblings who seem to be constantly at war. One of the greatest sources of sadness and discouragement for parents is watching their children argue and fight constantly. Home at times seems more like a battlefield, teasing, bickering, arguing, and hitting way heavy on the parent's heart. Some parents wish they could retreat from this battlefield. A large portion of a parent's day is often spent in settling arguments and dealing with fighting kids. In fact, parents often describe the role as more like a referee.
Sibling conflict is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to teach some of life's most important lessons. In fact, family is a place where we learn and grow. Sibling conflict is really a child's first class in relationship training. Parents, you are their teacher, and your home, yes, is their classroom. As a parent, not only is it important to teach our children positive relational skills with others inside the home, but what about those that live outside of its walls? Every day, the news reports of another case of bullying and the tragic consequences. What if your child finds himself or herself on the receiving end? How do we teach them to protect themselves from that bully on the playground? And how do we teach our children these important relational skills that will set the stage for their interpersonal interactions throughout their entire lifetime? We want to thank you for joining us today as we discuss this important topic of developing healthy relationships in our children.
Our topic today will deal with teaching our children the importance and value of their interpersonal interactions. Our guest today will help us look at this important topic. Our special guests again for today are Drs. Leslie and Prudence Pollard. Dr. Leslie Pollard currently serves as the 11th president of Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree, a Master's of Divinity, a Master of Business Administration, a Doctor of Ministry in Preaching and Worship, and a PhD in New Testament Language and Literature.
And Dr. Prudence Pollard holds a Bachelor of Science degree, a Master of Public Health, and a PhD in Evaluation, Measurement, and Research Design. Currently, she serves as the Vice President for Research and Employee Services at Oakwood University, as well as being an Adjunct Professor of Management at La Sierra and Loma Linda Universities.
The Pollards are parents of two daughters. One is an attorney and the other is a pharmacist. There is so much more that we could say about the very gifted and educated couple that we have with us today, and we will learn more about them as we spend time together. Dr. Pollard, thank you so much for being with us again
It's
on
our
this
pleasure.
section of the program. We are delighted to have you and your expertise with us.
Thank you.
Now, as we did before we began the program, we'd like to see a video of a special lady and her two daughters.
Almost 2 years back now, this was my family. And we're a family of 4, and now it's just me and my girls. My husband died unexpectedly almost 2 years ago. Left me with a 2- and 4-year-old girls to raise by myself, which comes with so many different challenges, not only dealing with the grief of the loss of my husband and their dad, which has been horrific, but also just the day-to-day challenges of getting them off to school and breaking up fights between the two of them and dealing with issues at school with their teachers. And it's just the everyday things that used to be so much easier with 2 parents are now being carried by just me. You know, there are many challenges that come along that surprise me, like getting a note from the teacher saying, you know, one of my children has had a really rough day and hit somebody, another child in the class, or acted out inappropriately, and somehow I have to find a way to deal with that. And some of this is just uncharted territory. But my kids fight about just about everything. Toys, clothes. Oh, a big one is who gets to sit by mommy. Since I am the only parent now, they constantly fight over my attention. And there's only one of me, so it's hard to, that's why I tell them I have 2 arms, one for each of you. But it can be really exhausting. I've tried getting 2 of the same toys so they don't fight over the same toy. And yet they still find a way to fight over the same toy. It just never ceases to amaze me. They fight over which movies they want to watch, or you know, specific outfits. Or Mila's at the point where she's 6 and she feels like she's the big kid and she wants to tell Maddie what to do, and she instructs her on what to do, and Maddie is very headstrong and doesn't want to particularly follow that route. It's a constant battle, constant. I suppose my question would be, how do I raise my children to get along not only with each other but with their peers and adults in a Christian and godly way, and do it in the way God intends me to raise them?
It's another interesting question. I guess sibling rivalry started way back there in Eden. We read that in Genesis, and it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
You know, we wish it were different, but that's a good question. How would you suggest that we answer that question? How do you raise your children with good spiritual values and to get along as well?
I think in this case, I think the parent has to, it's hard to take the long view, but the question I would have is this a phase that the children are going through? Mm-hmm. Or is this a persistent behavior that I've seen for years?
Ongoing, that's right.
Yeah, and I want to start there and then begin to work out from whatever the answer to that question is. If I think it's a phase, then the interventions will be of one type. If I think this is the burgeoning anger management, low impulse control, then maybe I'll try a different type of intervention, even with maybe a professional, like a child psychologist,
Sure.
to begin to unpackage some. Is this repressed anger? The video said Daddy died. Are they upset
some
about
parents
that?
may think, you mean I have to find help from a professional? Does that mean I'm not an adequate parent?
Yeah.
Well,
Some will
all.
wonder about that,
You,
but-
you may be a very adequate parent, but not a conflict intervention specialist.
That's right.
And so whether it is for children or adults, sometimes we do need help from individuals who spend all their time studying how to manage those situations. This could very well be a situation where the children were used to two parents
That's exactly
being
right.
there to interact with them. Now they have one. Could it be that they're fighting for the attention of the one because they don't have two? So across time, looking at what is happening, what I saw on the video is that the children were calling out for mommy to resolve the dispute.
Attention, yes.
Attention.
Is it a bid for it?
In fact, in Meredith's case, as you remember, she lost her husband.
Yes.
So as she's trying to deal with her own pain, she's also trying to deal with the
Yes.
kids' pain. And so that's why intervention from
Yes.
outside could be very helpful for all of them,
Yes.
not just for the kids, but also for Meredith. Yeah.
But, you know, as we delve into this topic of how do we teach our children, I mean, you know, Dr. Pollard, we're talking about infants here. We're talking about birth to age 7. So, you know, I think I'd like to hear from you. Why is it important that we are even putting this topic in? We're talking about young children. How important is it that we really take a look at teaching our children these relationship skills and the importance of healthy relationships from birth?
There are two things that I see here. First, for them to learn how to share or to tell their concerns. What is it that's going on between the two children that cause them to pull on the toy, tug on the toy? What is it that they're not saying to each other? And so how we help them with managing conflict at this early stage can also help them later on. We see in the workplace adults who aren't able to articulate their differences and instead engage in disruptive behaviors, often aimed at destroying the other person. These behaviors, how to positively deal with conflict, can be learned from birth.
So there again, you know, we see it repeated, that teaching a 2-year-old how to handle conflict with their 4-year-old brother or sister, those same skills they're going to carry on
Through life.
through
Yes.
life.
You probably see even brothers and sisters there at the university, and some of them getting along well, but some of them not so well because that's not how they learned it when they were
Yes.
little.
It's almost like a picture of the playground where some people can't play together. Even we see that sometimes, yes, we do. We do with adults. We do see that. I was thinking though that the mom here said that she bought 2 toys to keep them from fighting, and now they fight over the 2
Yes,
toys.
yes,
Yes. I recall in our early parenting days, we would get frustrated and exasperated and try some of these same types of techniques. However, I think one of the lessons that's been brought out, at least in the book Raise a Leader, is the need for forming and shaping the will, not breaking it.
Yes,
But
yes.
shaping the will from the earliest years from the child.
Yes.
As a mom, you can tell the difference, Pam, I'm sure, between a cry of hunger and a cry of
Yes.
anger.
Yes,
Yes.
There is a difference, and we can pick it up right from the cradle. And how do we manage that and help shape that? I think that's a part of what the parenting task has to be from birth to that 7-year mark that we're looking at.
And it is tempting to, and I don't like to use the word, but it is tempting to break the will to make the children adapt to your wishes so that you can enjoy peace.
Yes.
But that's not the way to help them grow to be healthy leaders.
No, I think our task as parents is not to break the will, but to help them make good choices. Because
Yes.
choice is the foundation of character.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like for you to hold up your book and show it to our audience that's watching this
Yes.
program, because it really intrigued me when I saw it. First of all, I love the cover.
picture,
I
I
just
love
love the picture of that book. But in some ways, when people look at that, they may think a leadership book for a toddler
Yes.
in diapers.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
somehow in our minds, that doesn't go together. You know, when we go into a bookstore or we think, I want a book on leadership, we don't often see a leadership book that's geared towards teaching our toddlers to be leaders. So this really intrigues me. So you know, first of all, it's called Raise a Leader, and it is by Dr. Prudence Pollard, and we will have information on our parenting website about how our viewing audience can get this book. But I'd like for you to talk about this a little bit, because as we talk about having positive relationship skills, we're also talking about raising a leader. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, Pamela, this book was written because I'd spent many years working with executives in corporations, helping to develop their leadership skills. And what I saw in some of the executives was really bad behaviors. And I began to think, what if they had been taught effective leadership skills from the moment they were born? Then it would make it so much easier for individuals like myself or for their supervisors to work with them. And so I began to think, what are the resources that are available to parents? God calls us to take care of the little ones, to raise them, to give honor and glory to Him. But where are the guidebooks? We struggled with this when we were raising our children. We could not find the book that laid out the principles of what God called us as parents to develop in our children. And we knew we were not there to control our children, but we were called to nurture something in our children. And so I decided to take my notes that I made to myself and written out when they were growing up, and eventually to turn it into a book.
Dr. Prudence, we know that God put this on your heart, and we want to talk more about this, but we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a moment.
You can probably already tell that we will not be able to cover every area, every concern, or every question you may have with just one parenting resource. Parenting will continue to produce new challenges and questions every day. As our children grow and change, so do the parenting challenges.
Our goal is to continue this conversation with up-to-date resources and parenting tools. We will do this online via our website. There, you will find out about any updates to these materials. And in addition, you will receive downloadable resources on a regular basis. It's our desire that this resource will assist you in your God-given role as a parent, using principles that are firmly grounded in the Word of God. So now let's go back to our conversation with our guests on today's program as we continue on the journey of exploring our God-given role of parenting. Welcome back once again. Lesson Prudence, we really feel that God placed it on your heart to write a book for parents, Raise a Leader God's Way. And in today's program, we're really looking at how to help our children have positive relational skills. So when we talk about raising a leader, connect that for us with helping our children build positive relationships.
Pamela, leadership is about relationship. In order to lead, it means that I must have followers. That's relationship.
Sure.
That's true.
And so when we talk about leadership, we're really talking about relationship with at least one other person. Where do we begin to learn those skills? It's not in the workplace, it's at home.
Yes, of course.
And so children, especially if they're in a family setting where there's more than one child in the home, you have a natural setting in which to develop the leadership skills of the children as they interact with each other, as they interact with the adults around them.
Sure. So you're saying not only of the first child, but actually every child can become a leader.
Every child in that relationship.
But
in
if
that
you
family.
think of that,
yes.
what an awesome thought as a parent. You know, for me, a parent, to think, I'm not just raising my child, I am raising a future leader. You know, I don't think we often think of parenting
Yes.
that way. And to me, that is just an awesome thought. I'm raising a leader.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was going to add that my role with the book Raise a Leader was to read it for theological principles. So that's my humble contribution.
I'm sure it was very valuable.
But that said, though,
And it is acknowledged in the
yes,
book.
it is. yes, and gladly, it is. But however, as a parent, it lifts the horizon when I say to a parent that your task is not simply to feed and water this child,
Yes.
but you're actually now to raise a child that in your heart, don't you want them to be a leader of the crowd, not a follower of the
That's right.
crowd?
Yes.
That's exactly
And what are the
right.
principles that we need to implant within them so that they will work amicably, not be a bully, not abuse other children, but also in their security, in their little hearts to be leaders who do the right thing, whose influence is on the side of the kingdom. And it seems to me that theologically, what I took away from the book was that the whole purpose of parenting was to raise this child to be a disciple of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And every disciple makes other disciples, and that's where the leadership piece comes in.
Absolutely.
Let's go back just for a minute and pick up something that you just said, because to many people, or maybe even to children, when they hear leader, you know, like I'm the leader of the mountain, I'm the leader of the group, they could equate that with I'm the boss, you know, and so we have this bullying issue. How do we teach our children to be a leader God's way and yet still not be the boss, the bully, with the negative things that come with that?
We can do it both intentionally by creating events and occasions where they are expected to demonstrate certain leadership skills that we're instructing them on. We can also seize the moment when something naturally occurs and we're helping our children to think through how they want the situation to end up.
Oh,
Kind of beginning with the end in mind.
right.
Let me go back to the first. Planning those experiences, a simple thing like fixing breakfast. If you notice, Mom was fixing breakfast all by herself. Very simple project, but couldn't that be a leadership development moment?
So you're
As the two
delegating some of
children-
the leadership to your child.
Yes. Here's the project. The project is fixing breakfast and putting breakfast on the table. The assignment is given to both children. You have them understand their individual roles. Talk about that. What is your role? What will you do and what will you do next in order to achieve this? You're walking the child through various steps in order to carry out what is a cooperative project.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Seems very simple, but it is powerful in teaching that child without telling them, you must do this, you must do that. Let them learn from experience.
And
Yes.
that's really a wonderful, practical idea, because no role is more important than the other.
Yes.
And yet, as all family members, we're all participating together to do something as simple as preparing a breakfast.
Yes.
You know, that's a great idea.
And it helps Mom.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
a single parent. Her husband has passed away. She needs help. So how can she help the children learn to be helpful, to be a part of the community, that family system, and to do it in a cooperative way?
Right.
Delegate more, give them the skill sets to work together in the home.
Right.
And they are learning by experiencing the act of leadership.
You
Wonderful
encourage them
idea.
to grow by letting them make their own decisions.
Yes.
By feeling the importance of their own
Yes.
contribution to the
Yes.
family. That's a wonderful way to teach leadership skills. Now, we only have about a minute or so, a couple of minutes. What 2 or 3 things could we teach children to resolve conflict in very practical ways?
Okay, one of the things we can teach children to resolve conflict is the ability to identify how they feel about conflict
Yes.
Okay.
and to talk through their feelings. Sometimes we talk past their feelings to the behaviors we want to see.
Right, right.
But suppose we said to the child, okay, so when Susie took your toy, how did you feel? I felt angry. I felt, I felt this way.
Instead of responding, let's see how I felt
Let's
about
see
it.
how I felt about it.
Okay.
And then after I identify how I feel, okay, so what is the best way then that we're going to use to now resolve this? First, to manage self.
Right.
One of the quotes, I think, in Prudence's book is that from the famous manager Peter Drucker. He said the first key to management, the manager must manage themselves.
Sure.
I think that's one key. We
Okay.
help the child begin the self-management
Right,
process
right.
long before they get to the person, because the behavior that looks like a provocateur, depending upon how you respond,
Right.
it is or it isn't.
Yes, sure.
And in the beginning, that may take a little extra time
yes, of
as I
course,
help
of
them.
course, of
But in
course.
the long run, I'm going to be spending a lot less time as a parent solving their conflicts.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And you asked for two or three.
Yes, yes.
And what is so important with that phase is the child learns to articulate emotion. Much conflict escalates because we're unwilling to acknowledge how we feel. So, am I angry? Am I disappointed? What is it that I'm feeling before I begin to deal with the other person?
So we're not really telling the kids to deny conflict or avoid conflict, but
no.
really to manage it by recognizing their own feelings.
Yes. Their own
Well, we could
response
talk
to
all day
We
about
could.
this. Thank you so much for being with us today. You've helped us to see so many avenues to helping our children. It's just been a blessing to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And we want to thank you also for joining us as we have talked about some of the challenges of parenting today. We also want to remind you to visit our website, helpimaparent.org, and there you will find many additional resources and materials.
When you feel like screaming out, "Help, I'm a parent," claim God's promise. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Regardless of the challenges of parenting, God is with you. You're not alone. Reach out, claim His promises, and take His hand and journey together with Him.
Join us next time on Help, I'm a Parent, Christian Parenting in the Real World, when we will discuss ways that we can manage media in our homes. But until then, we want to invite you as a parent to cling to your Heavenly Father.